age to be
And
bringing stuff home.
she started school.
Audio problems, we have gone to commercial. Welcome to the August 31st meeting of the Rotary Club of South Jacksonville. For our Zoom members, and we can hear you now, we're happy you can join us. Please remember to mute yourself and submit questions or comments via chat or unmute and let us hear from you. Great to see everybody with us today. It is a full house. And thank you to our greeter, past President Gary Wilkinson. The prayer and pledge today will be given by Bruce Madden. I think. Yeah.
Wait, it's a good one.
I did say nature. Let us pray. Heavenly Father, as we consider the workings of our city, our community, and our club, we ask for your blessing that all of our acts, all of our thoughts, and all of our aims be directed by the four-way test and everything else that Rotary stands for. In your holy name we pray. Amen. Amen. And the pledge. Let me get out of the way. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Please be seated. And today a very special family time from Christy King. Good afternoon, Christy.
Thanks, President Richard. So since we don't have a meeting next week, I'll be including birthdays and anniversaries for both this week and next week. We'll start with member anniversaries. Past President Hobie Jost celebrated 30 years with Rotary on August 30th, and Vic Zambetti is celebrating 30 years with Rotary on September 10th. We have one wedding anniversary. Past President Jay Plotkin and his wife Cheryl will celebrate their 31st anniversary on September 8th. For birthdays, we have a few. Bill Traer is celebrating his birthday on September 3rd. Randy Gordon is celebrating his birthday on September 5th. George Armstrong is celebrating his birthday on September 7th. Past President Tom Rainey is celebrating his birthday on September 8th. William Harrell is celebrating his birthday on September 9th. Past President Bill Jaycox is celebrating his birthday on September 10th. And Erin Perry is celebrating her birthday on September 12th. And last but not least, past President Bill Langley prepared a special birthday recognition for one of our members, which I will share. Today, since we are not meeting next week, we want to make special recognition to birthday boy Marcus Drua. Each week, Marcus is with us via Zoom from his secluded retreat on the South Side. Next Tuesday, September 7th, Marcus will celebrate his 90th birthday. Marcus is being recognized today for not only turning 90, but also as the oldest member of our club. He joined on April 15th, 1969. Hard to believe anyone has been here longer than Barry, but Marcus beat him out by 2 months. In his usual fashion, Marcus is giving out gifts on his birthday instead of receiving. So on your table, there is a blue envelope. Please take one and celebrate Marcus's birthday with him. We want to wish Marcus and all his fellow club members that are celebrating birthdays with us. Happy birthday to everyone.
Thank you, Christy. And some announcements today as we look over our blue envelopes. Lisa Marie, I believe that you have the first announcement regarding Rotary t-shirts.
Oh,
and other kinds of shirts.
yes. Would you like to come up there?
Okay.
All right. So I am very happy to share with you that we now have some Rotary wear available to us. Patty has gone through the efforts of finding some options for us to select so that when we do service or just go out in the community and we want to support Rotary, we have options. There's actually there's three options. There's a t-shirt option. Patty has the samples of them at the pictures of them. We couldn't get the samples in time, but the pictures on the desk. We have a t-shirt that can be used for work events. We have a golf shirt that if you want to sweat in that, that's fine too. Ladies and men's styles. particularly I'm favorite of the ladies styles. And then we also have another ladies option because I got to select it. I picked the second ladies option. Men, if you'd like to get the ladies option, you can, but it's a white V-neck that is specifically a ladies cut shirt. So they're really awesome options. Please, get your order in to Patty. Just say, hey, I want this, and she'll bill you. So we have no problem billing all of our members for anything that you want. It's our pleasure to serve. So
Thank
turn
you.
it back over.
I look at those shirts that are here and I think, I really ought to order one. I wonder when the deadline is. Is there a deadline?
The deadline, I believe we set for middle of this month, if I'm not
Very
mistaken.
good.
Yes,
Okay, thank you. Meaning September.
yes, middle of September,
All
sorry.
right. As you already know, there is no lunch meeting next week, so please enjoy your Labor Day holiday. Mike Shuey has an announcement about stories for the gear. Mike?
So as you all may or may not know, I do the gear every week, and I'm in finance, so I can't write an article to save my life. So I'm up here to talk about content for the gear. But first of all, I want to thank Bill and Patty. They've been integral in helping me every week to put together what goes in the gear. So what I need is help from everybody in the club to provide content for the gear, anything that you feel would be appropriate for our newsletter. Write the article though, because if you send it to me and tell me how great Trevor Lawrence did last week with his 2 touchdowns, I'll probably write about the first 2 weeks. It won't be the same story. So you can get my email address from Patty, or you can get it from me after we're done here today, and any content that you can provide would be very much appreciated.
Thank you.
If I can add pictures too, even if you have a picture of something that happened, please forward it on to Mike and we'll figure out how to make sure that we get that out there too. So pictures and stories, anything content related that we think that folks would enjoy seeing in the newsletter.
Great, thank you. Thank both of you, yes. Ryan, an announcement about upcoming social next Thursday, right?
So Thursday afternoon, evening, we're gonna have our first social of the Rotary year at the Bearded Pig. So they've got a new location, it's a little bit bigger than their old one. I don't know how many have been to the old one. Been there a few times, pretty nice. I have not been to the new one yet. 1808 Kingston Avenue, I believe, 5 to 7. I'll be there a little bit early to get a table, so please stop by, in and out, just as you are able to make it.
All right, thank you. Remember that our September 21st meeting is a member-only club assembly. And let's see. Anything else before oratory? Yeah, you want to do the oratory announcement?
Leslie.
Leslie, where are you, Leslie? There you are.
Just a quick update. The oratory committee is working very hard behind the scenes. We have our topic. We have reviewed the list of schools. And after Labor Day, we'll start reaching out to the schools to get applications in. We have confirmed our finals date. That's going to be February the 17th at WJCT. And regionals will be January, possibly into the first week of February, depending on when we can get them scheduled. So, thank you.
Thank you. And our introduction of visitors and guests, Lisa Marie again.
I'm going to turn that time over to you.
Are you?
We
I have
a
no
visitor
list.
guest, unless you want me to introduce the honorable councilman.
Yeah, please.
Then, I think somebody else has got that, don't they?
Yeah, okay. Well, then, Lisa, yes,
We do have visitors.
we do. All right.
There's nobody on the form, so
weird,
you guys
yeah.
want to
All right.
introduce your visitors,
Please
please?
rise and introduce your
Please.
visitor or guest. Yeah.
Tom.
Not on the form, imagine that. Okay, so we have Kirby Wedekin, stand up Kirby, who's been here before, Kirby's second, and Kirby is with Northeast Florida Cybersecurity and Infrastructure your agency.
Never gets easier to say that.
Thank goodness I had that now, which is really like Homeland Security kind of is, right? That's right. That's, that, makes it permanent.
Never a dull moment, as everybody that keeps up with the news knows. I mean, everything from Afghanistan to Hurricane Ida. So very busy on that front, and engaging across the community. But I'm here to attest to all of the hard work from every organization that makes Jacksonville and Northeast Florida work. Everybody in Homeland Security at some level are some of the most impressive professionals that I know. So we are in very good hands here in this area. So thank you very much for having us, Thomas.
Did I miss anybody else?
Singing. That's right.
Mike?
Yeah.
No?
Pick a note. We here in Rotary welcome you today. So glad you came along, glad you came our way. Our hand of fellowship is yours, sunshine or in rain. We say welcome, come again. Thank you, Lisa Marie.
Oh, yeah, my pleasure.
With or without relax?
Bubble for that.
We are fantastic.
Richard?
Yeah.
Can I just ask that either Marcus or Patty somehow send his address or an email address or something? Just on the social.
All in DAC.
Is it on the?
Yep,
Yes.
Okay.
and in DAC TV too.
Duly noted and answered. All right then. Introducing our speaker today, we would like to welcome past President Jason Burnett.
Before I start, there's a little bit of club business. Is Bob Massey here? No, we have a parliamentarian question. Maybe Mike Derrick can help me out with this. It's still prohibited. Al Ferraro is running for mayor as a Republican candidate, and we're not allowed to talk about that. Is that still current bylaws?
That is correct. That's a much shorter speech you give than you normally do when you introduce a politician who is running for office.
Well,
So,
this is just a parliamentary moment. So
okay, so you didn't want to say anything more about credentials or anything like that?
I'll get into that in his introduction, but I'm not going to make any request for votes or for cash donations.
Okay, yeah, you normally
Marcus Druitt took care of that already. So
yeah, you normally don't.
Al's going around scooping them up off the table like crazy. Never say anything like it. But no, in all seriousness, this is a wonderful moment for me where I do get to introduce a friend, somebody I actually went to high school with, if you can believe that. And he is so surprised that I'm standing up here introducing him, and I'm pretty damn surprised I'm up here introducing him as well. But it is just a wonderful opportunity to talk about some of the great qualities of Al Ferraro, who is city councilman for District 2. And we are probably could not be more diametrically opposed politically in our thought processes. And it has been fantastic, I think, for both of us to have wonderful conversations to show that people still can talk in America with different points of view. And I was never happier or prouder to be asked to help somebody when he was running for city council, both his first and second term. As you can imagine, he's a native Floridian. We went to Sandalwood High School together. He's been married for 31 years to his wife, Amy, who let's be honest, she runs the business. She's wonderful. He has an amazing daughter that's working on her PhD up in Oklahoma in sociology. So just really comes with a giving heart, and I just happy to introduce him today. Everybody, Al Ferraro, your city councilman.
You know, my heart was pounding there because I didn't know what stories might come unleashed there. So
We have the same feeling every time, Jason.
that's good to know. But no, a quick story before I tell you a little bit about myself. Jason, myself, and a guy named Marshall Atkinson were helping get the sheriff and get Congressman Rutherford for office a while back. And we said to each other as we were standing there, I can't believe that we're here with the sheriffs. We've avoided sheriffs our lives as kids. And here we are introducing them now. So things change, and thank you very much. And thank you for inviting me here. I know you guys do a lot of wonderful things here in our community, and it's really good to be with you guys. My name is Al Ferraro. I am the city councilman for District 2. What makes District 2 a little bit unique is it covers both sides of the river. It's the only district that does that. It starts off Atlantic Boulevard and goes to the county line. I've been married to my beautiful wife for 31 years. I was wearing my mask out here, so a lot of people saw me earlier. I'm one of these people that my wife only has one lung, so I'm very astute to watching what I do and where I'm at. My daughter's 26, September 11th of this year, and she is the brains of the family. A lot of times I'll write something, somebody goes, wow, you went to Sandalwood? You really do, you really write well. And my daughter actually goes through this stuff before I turn it in. I'm a business owner. I've been in business for over 35 years. I own Ferraro's Lawn Service. I've worked for some of the folks here in this room. I do understand what it's like to make a payroll. I know what it's like to pay taxes and have those things. My father was the first generation born here in this country. So part of what happens in this country has been instilled to my family, how hard it was to get to this country. So I have a lot of charities that we do work for. I don't have a lot of money, so I do a lot of time and help out people. One of the charities I work for is Family of Slain Children. That charity is one of the charities. To be a membership, you have to have a family member that was murdered. Most of them are young children that we deal with, working with that. Mad Dads, it's another group that goes around trying to break the code of silence of people who know crimes that are committed in our city and trying to break that code of silence. And I am a 4th degree knight in our church. So charity work that you guys do and helping out the community is something that has been embedded into me since a very, very young age. So one of the things I was talking with Jason on, becoming a councilman, this is something that I never, ever planned on doing. Sometimes you talk with people and they say, oh, I've wanted to do this since I was a little kid. I never had that. I had my attention in a different direction. But I was one of these people who watched what was going on in our government, in our city, and what was happening federally. This was back in 2013, 2014. And like a lot of people, I said, I can do a better job than those people. So I'm going to run for office. And I had people getting behind me saying, yeah, if you do this, we'll help you and we'll do whatever we can to help. It's like the dog that chased the possum up the tree. Once you got there, you go, okay, now what do I do? So that was one of those moments to where, you're trying to figure out, what do we do? So I go back to what was instilled to me. What is government about? The first job of the government is keeping our citizens safe. One of the things that bothered me that I had during our last budget season, and we're getting ready to pass the budget again, is how many council members were up wanting to defund our police. They didn't call it defunding. They called it keeping the money below the line, half of the budget. Those concern me because it goes back to how do we keep our citizens safe? And we see other states and other counties that have done that, and it hasn't worked out well. We also want to make sure that we have great roads and safe bridges for our community, and how we're going to do that. Keeping up our parks, after this pandemic, when it went through, it seemed like that was a safe haven that a lot of people went to, the parks. They went out on their boats, and that was a good place to get away. Garbage. Who has problems with getting their garbage picked up in here? Is there anybody who has a problem? Is it? So everybody has that. So that's something that we have to do with our local government. Taxes. We have people who support taxes and who don't. I was one of the people who opposed the taxes. I opposed the gas tax. I opposed, a lot of people don't realize it, but there was being pushed forward another tax on boat registrations. And that would have increased food. That would have increased a lot of other things. So
one of the things that I feel is very important, and I appreciate you having me here today, is having the ability for elected officials to get out into the community and talk about different things that are happening. So I always like to be approached about things that are going on, even though I'm a City 2 district council member. If you don't live in my district, doesn't mean that I can't help or do things for you if you're having problems in the city with, drainage, roads. If you've got something that's gone wrong, that you're having a problem, because we have the 630 city that everybody says they keep calling and can't get through. But elected officials should, be approachable. And one of the things I really tell a lot of people is you're not being represented by one elected official. I'm a district council member, but there's also 5 at large. So you have 6 council members that represent you, and they should be able to be approached and talked with very easily. I want to talk to you a little bit about infrastructure. That was one of the heaviest things that was brought to me on becoming in office. So the district that I have on the north side of the roads and infrastructure haven't really been touched for decades before I came into that office. We had major flooding happening, and a lot of the roads that go to the community some of them are just one way in and one way out. So when you would hear people talking about flooding, it wasn't an inconvenience. It was something that actually stopped people from being able to actually go to their homes or their businesses. And one of the things that was something that took me a little while to figure out is how that system works of receiving funding, because a lot of people don't understand how sometimes the roads work. You have 4 different really types of roads. You've got your federal highways, which would be like I-95, 295. So that would go under the federal. So no matter what would happen, that's something that goes federal. Then you have your state road, State Road 13, San Jose, Heckscher Drive, Wonderwood Expressway. So those are things that go through the state. So you have to get state approval on money and the okays on what gets repaired and what doesn't. And one of the problems I have with that is, does anybody use Wonderwood Expressway here? Wonderwood, you know how bad that can be. So Wonderwood Expressway is a fairly new road. And what happens, and the reason I'm bringing this up, is that we have roads that have been put in, and just like a car or business, you have depreciation on certain things. Well, the road was put in for $17–18 million, but it's going to cost about $33 to $34 million to fix the road. And the reason why is we had pipes that were put in there, and we had metal corrugated pipe, and we have the flow from the river that comes back and forth, and that's got salt water in it. So the problem with the road is actually the drain pipes that are deteriorated underneath it. And that's why you have that wobbly road that goes through there. So the reason I bring this up is I try to get people educated on knowing where to not just follow their complaints, but to follow people who can do the fixing part of it. So that's your state roads. Then you have your local roads, which is your neighborhood roads that go in your community, and drains and things like that. And then you have one of the most difficult ones to deal with, and that's the railroad. Anybody here on the railroad? Okay. I didn't want them to come back at me here. So the railroads are like dealing with a whole different government body all by itself. When the railroads come in, if there's drainage or if there's something that needs to be repaired in our district, one of the roads that we're doing right now is Alta Drive. Anybody here use Alta Drive? Okay. So the first section is going to be right there by 295 and Fay Road, and we have the railroad intersection. So the first phase is going to be getting that railroad up to par where it's going to be about 6 lanes going, and then it's going to go into 4 after that. One of the reasons I think infrastructure, and talking with people in communities about what's important on the infrastructure and taxes, is that road was a local option gas tax. You guys paid for that back in 2011, and they are just now starting that road right now. One of the reasons I think that they were just starting that road is because they wanted to pass a new tax to see, look what you're getting for your money. But that's something that was paid for back in 2011. it's important for you to know the different categories like that so you can figure out who you need to talk to about those areas, because I have a lot of people who come to me and they talk to me about state roads, which is great, but we need to get the state involved with all that. So that's one of the things that I wanted to talk on infrastructure. I'm going to move over now to parks for a minute. So I'm really proud of the district that I serve and represent, because the park service and system that I have in district bigger than most cities have for their whole city. We've got more regional parks and preserves than most areas have. And some of the parks that we've developed since I came in office, and let me say, I had a lot of help doing this. I had a lot of help from the administration, had a lot of help from the parks, and a lot of help from the community. One of the first parks that we developed was the El Faro Park. That's the park right underneath the Dames Point Bridge for the 33 lives that were lost in Hurricane Joaquin. And that used to be Dames Point Park. It was a rat infested park. It was just, if you had ever been to it, there was nothing that a lot of people didn't even know there was a park there. And we had Tote Maritime who came in and paid for everything. They paid for the reparking, the parking repaving, the sidewalks. It already had bathrooms, but they were in such poor condition. So all those things got fixed up and cleaned, and it's a beautiful park now. And there's a lighthouse that has the beacon that shines towards Puerto Rico, where the ship was supposed to go. And that has kind of been a holy ground for the families that lost their family members because there was no bodies recovered. So sometimes these parks mean more to people than just a park. The other park that I'm really proud of that we're just finishing up on is a park called Freedom Park. So there's a spot on Fort Caroline as you go east from St. John's Bluff that there used to be an old gate gas station. Do people know where that's at? So what makes that park in that area unique is Fort Caroline has the fort down there. But a lot of people don't realize the other importance of that area. We celebrate the Huguenots, we celebrate the Spanish and the French influence out there. But one of the things we didn't recognize is the African Americans. Now, this is something I started back in 2014 and 15. So in that area, it's called Cosmo. And it was settled by the Gullah Geechee tribe, which goes from the Carolinas to St. Augustine and Tallahassee. And this was an African group of slaves that settled some of these areas and made it become a farming and fishing community. What makes this area so unique is this was the absolute first land grant in the state of Florida to an African-American family named the Bartleys. Well, me and Jason went to school with the descendants of that. And as we were growing up as kids, people were always saying, you know, let's go down to the hole, let's go down to Cosmo, let's go down and talk with some of the folks out there. When you're 13, 14 years old, you really don't want to hear about history. But as you get older, you find out the importance of what happened in these areas where free slaves were coming and how they developed the land and how they lived off the land. And getting to live with these folks and growing up with them was really kind of neat. So this park here, Freedom Park, is also a dual purpose park. It recognizes the Gullah Geechee and the Cosmo area, but it also recognizes veterans with post-traumatic stress disorder. This will be the first in the state of Florida that does this. The reason why I was trying to do this is you sometimes will hear veterans can't get their name on the wall in town for different reasons that have to do of where their origin was, of where they signed up. And there's other things that I don't quite understand on the military side. But there were veterans who served 3 times in Iraq, and they had died, and their family members don't have a body and they don't really have a place. So we were trying to have something that we could develop where we would actually be able to have monuments for families to go and do things on holidays and things times that meant a lot to them. So that's the second part. The third park we're working on right now is Sunny Acres. Does anybody know where Sunny Acres is? Sunny Acres is off of near 295 and Merrill Road. This is going to be an all-inclusive park, and we've got disabled services that's working with us. So the time that people would get off the bus, you see the little bumps on the roads, on the corners where the intersections are, those are actually done in Braille. And that's so when somebody can feel the ground, they know that they're at an intersection or crossing. So what we're doing is we're working with disabled services, we're working with the Parks Department, so that we're going to have all types of things for our friends in wheelchairs to be able to get on teeter-totters, swing sets, things that we take for granted. And what happened is I had a lady who had a child who was 7 years old, says, "What are you doing to help my child be able to play in playgrounds and do things?" And honestly, it kind of caught me off guard, because sometimes you take for granted things that you have, or things that's just normal to you that's difficult for somebody else. So that was something that we're working on, and we're hoping to move that forward. The other couple parks that we had was Half Moon Park and Boat Ramp at the very end of Main Street going north. And then we have two regional parks in our area, Sheffield Park and Ed Austin. What makes Ed Austin so unique is we also have the Police Athletic League out there. So we have a lot of kids that go there, and they work with our police department. And it gives kids places to go that are safe, that are friendly. And it's something that we keep them busy during the times that their parents are at work. And the last one I want to just talk about for a minute is the Black Hammock Nature Preserve. So right now we're trying to buy 780 acres off of Saw Pit Road. Our Park Service up there that is just full of parks and preserves has a little gap. And we have found a family that has owned this property since it was deeded from Spain. And we're trying to acquire that with the city. We had one of the Northside generating stations that was taken down, Cedar Bay. And when that station was taken down, there was money set aside to buy land, and this was part of what that money was purposed for, that we're trying to move forward with that. So that's something that we're trying to do in our district as well. We also have the new Northside Library that is coming through there. It's going to be real close to the New Berlin Elementary. And what makes this library so unique is it'll be different than all the other libraries that we've had. It's going to be a traditional library as we know libraries to be, but it's also going to be something with high tech. It's going to be involved in manufacturing. It's going to be involving other types of high tech industry, so that we can use it as more of a tool for helping out our community. It'll also be located with our parks and trail systems that I was talking about with these other things that we're doing. This is something that's been in the works. I wish I had more information to give to you on that right now, but there's been some bumps in the roads that we hit with that. But this will be one of the first libraries that we've had in that area. Just want to talk for a minute about resiliency. And if anybody has questions at any time, I don't know if you take these or not, I'm a good, if you have a question that you want to throw at me or go at the end. I want to talk to you a little bit about resiliency. So in the district that I represent, if you get a map out and you look at the north side of my district, these are the areas that typically flood under storm conditions, really high tides, things of that nature. So I'm always concerned about that. And just to give a rundown of the different hurricanes, we had Matthew on October 7th, because we're right in the middle of some of these, in 2016. Irma, September 10th, 2017. Maria, September 24th, 2017. That one went for a while. That was from August 24th to September 10th. So we're really in that season right now, and we're very fortunate that we're not something like Louisiana right now. However, we have flooding in our area that is catastrophic to the people that live in. Yes, that's how bad it gets. So one of the things that we're trying to also do is I'm also trying to do an overlay in that area. And what that overlay will do is it will keep some of those areas natural to where we are able to have it where it's, am I getting called on the time? Am I running out of time?
No.
Okay. Being that those areas flood, we're trying to see what we can do to actually help with the resiliency on there. We've got a new resilience officer who's going to be working with of these things. And that's very important to this area. Let me tell you or talk to you a minute about some of the taxpayer funded projects that we've had go through or not go through. So Daly's Place was something that when that went through, it was something that the community got involved with, talked about. I did support that. And we have to get in front of the community, just like we're doing now, to be able to talk about what you guys want to see, what you want us to vote to spend your taxpaying dollars on or not to do it. Lot J came up. I didn't support that. And that didn't go through. That was something that I could not get in front of the group of people that to support moving that forward. And even though I think it was a great idea, it was something I couldn't support because the community who put me in office did not want this. And I kept saying to groups, if the community is not supportive of it as a representative, I can't be supportive of it, no matter what I think or how I like it or don't like it. Of course, we have the district, and now the new one that's going to be coming up is going to be the Four Seasons. I'm the chairman of the Waterways, and we're going to be having that coming up on our next Waterways meeting. And that'll be something that you'll be able to look at if you haven't already seen some of the dialogue that's gone on about what their intention is of building out there. One of the things as being a Waterways chairman that's frustrating is being known as our city as a river city. A lot of people don't realize we don't have any funding mechanisms for our river. Anytime we want to do something with our boat ramps or docks or anything, we have to go to the state or federal government to try to get money for things that are on our river, unless we have a private developer put money into it. That's extremely frustrating because there's a lot of docks and there's a lot of derelict vessels that you've seen where people will go out and they'll anchor a boat and they'll leave it, and that's their junkyard. They just leave it. And what happens is you and I end up being responsible for these boats or docks that are not maintained. So it's something I'm constantly working on to see if we can do something better so that we can move forward on keeping our river cleaner, safer for everybody that's out here. In certain parts of town, we've had areas that were known for dropping boats off. District 14 was one of the areas, and what would end up happening, somebody put a new dock in, we'd have a storm and the boat would blow into someone's dock, and that's not insured or anything. So these are real problems, and they end up becoming financial burdens on the city as well. One of the other things too that I like to talk about with the community is the heart when that was taken down, part of taxpayer funded projects. The people in my district, which is far away from the Hart Expressway, supported it. And one of the reasons they supported it is because I ended up having meetings and explaining what we were doing. One of the things people would come up to me and say, why would we take down a perfectly good road to put another road there? And that wasn't the case. It was a bridge over land that we had a lot of money that we were getting ready to sink into it to maintain it. And that was put in originally to take traffic away from the shipyards when the shipyard, we had all this city land out there that was not getting any tax revenues from. So by removing this, we were able to do something like we're doing now, where we're going to end up getting tax revenues coming in on something we didn't have. People will say, well, this is something just for the Jaguars and Shad Khan. It does help him and it does help the team, but it also helps out our community. And that's one of the things that we need to talk with, people and have this open dialogue, is because there were people that just thought this was just money being spent in a direct going to be helpful to anybody. And that's just not true. But in the district I served, we went over this, we explained this, and actually we had no problems to where I knew there were people in those areas who never heard why we were doing this. And I think that's a fallacy that we passed up a great opportunity of explaining what we're trying to do for other projects that come through the city that would have been helpful. Let me just explain a little bit of what I did not expect as coming into an elected office. These are things that I just honestly didn't see. I didn't expect to see this pandemic. I've always thought this was a deliberate attack on our country. I still do. But regardless, to see what we're having to go through, to see our country shutting down, to see businesses being shut down. One of the things that bothered me as an elected official, as a citizen, as a businessman, is when businesses were getting shut down. I remember saying to one of the fire chiefs that, you know, when the government or the government office is up on stage telling people that we were going to be doing the shutdown, everybody who was on the stage with the government, including me, were people that were going to be getting paid from everybody here. And it bothered me to see that happening. And I'm glad that we're not going into that anymore, because it was something that was just a black eye for us. The uprising against our police and our first responders, our military, to see people that are out here who don't like that. I'm trying to see what I can do to work with our community to stop that. I don't know where this is all getting started from, but it does concern me when people are against our police officers. There's no good consequences that will happen with that. The government paying people to stay home and not work. As a business owner, as a citizen, as an elected official, I think this is one of the absolute worst things that we could have happen in our country right now. We've got people who will not return to work because they're making more sitting home of all the different ways that they're getting money. And I think that once this stops, we're going to have a really big problem on our hands through our whole country. So this is something that I try to talk with people about, to where we get that conversation going, and the anxiety that you see with people. All these different things that I just mentioned has really affected a lot of people. There's people who I've known for years and years who I thought were really strong people. And I guess just the beating down of this has harmed a lot of people. My daughter and my wife make comments that I handle major problems really well, but tell me we're out of coffee and I lose it. So I don't want to be that guy, but my point being is that's another thing that I didn't expect, that I want to try to see what we can do about. The large scale homelessness of people. It doesn't matter what part of town we go to, it seems like it's a huge problem with a mental illness. It's affecting everybody. So it's something that we have to work on. In my district, I used to and see what I could do to get people off the street. It's become such a problem. It's almost each intersection I go to, that would be a stop for me. And these are just major challenges ahead that we're going to have for the next, I think, decade. I want to talk just from people. Has everybody here lived here in the 80s here in the city, or people, a lot of people here from the 80s?
Yeah.
So one of the things that we look at is, how do we get into the problems that we have? To fix the pension problem, we had to look at how did we get into the pension problem to fix it so we get out of it. On the garbage problem, it is really a problem in some areas. So you want to look at how did we get into this, because this kind of happened fairly quickly. It's not something that, so back in the 80s, we had 4 dump sites. We had Girvin Road, we had the North Side, we had Sunbeam, and then we had the one on Trail Ridge. Now we have only 1 dump site, and that's on Trail Ridge. So when you got trucks that are going all the way from the beaches down to 301, it takes so much time. So we need a transfer station. We did a poor job of thinking about putting it next to some homes over in Mandarin. That didn't work out real well. So I'm working right now with the Public Works Director on seeing about some of the ones that we had that were shut down just for yard waste, that we could actually chop up, grind. And the reason we shut them down is because they got to a certain height. Some of the proposals that I'm making to them are, I'm trying to see what is the lowest cost way of trying to deal with it while we're looking for a long-term fix, because we have to look for a long-term fix. Having trash in people's front yards that are out there for 3 and 4 weeks is unacceptable. And that's part of what we're supposed to be doing. So with that, that's just a little hint of what I was doing. The other thing I wanted to just talk to you for a second, I'm gonna have my business cards up here if anybody needs anything. I ended up giving somebody who was blind a talking to one time, and I said, give me a call. And I felt like the biggest idiot when I handed him my card. And you just do this out of you know, regular business of talking with people. So my business cards are in Braille also. This is also something just to try to get people to recognize there's things in our city that we need extra help with, and we have a huge blind to do things for, as far as intersections that have sounds, that have different things that a lot of times people will think we're wasting money. Well, why do we have to have sound on these intersections? For the usage of people that need that. And with that, I'd be open for any comments or questions. Yes, sir.
Thanks for being with us today. Kind of touched around it, touched on a lot of things, but if you could narrow it down, we know government has to take care of anything that's thrown in the pot, but looking forward over the next 10 years, is there a top 1 or 2 issues that no matter who's in leadership, they're going to have to make this their number 1 or 2 issue?
Safety.
See for the city.
Safety. I think safety is one of the biggest things that we really need to work on. Our murder rate is really high. We don't talk about it because we don't really want to be known as a mega spot for murders. And we have a lot of crime that's happened, and a lot of gang related things that have to do with drugs where we have murders. I mean, you see it on the news where somebody will be pulling up to a McDonald's or something, and they're getting shot from somebody thinking they're somebody else. When I go with the Mad Dads walks and we go to some of the communities, what we're trying to find is, when we talk about breaking the code of silence, and I'll just give you an example. When we go door to door and we talk to people, did you see these murders? Because I mean, a lot of these places, nobody sees it. There's hundreds of people around, but nobody sees anything. If we don't say something, we can't do anything about it. And a lot of times when you go door to door, you ask people, have you seen anything? Have you seen anything? You get the same old thing. Sometimes you'll knock on a door. Somebody, when they find out that you're asking about a murder that happened out in front, all of a sudden they break down, they're just crying. You know, right off the bat, they know something. By getting them to say something and getting them in a position of feeling like they can talk about it, these are things that we can solve. So to answer your question is, I think crime is probably the biggest thing. The second thing is having the infrastructure here in place. Our schools are in terrible shape, and our roads and our infrastructure are in terrible shape. We have a lot of building going up. We have neighborhoods going up all through the city, and that's a good thing. The problem is we're dumping them onto 2-lane roads, and we don't have the infrastructure in place to do that. That's something that's an after effect. Hopefully, in the mayor's budget, it looks like he's looking at some of that stuff to actually help out. But I think those are some of the biggest things. The other thing that I would say that one of the third biggest things is the homelessness or mental illness. Nobody wants to have a business or location where they have to worry about parking. I know when I park down here at the garage here, there's some people out there just sitting to get out of the heat, and I understand what they're trying to do. But that doesn't help businesses. And when you have a lot of that happening, it just doesn't happen. So just right off the bat, there's a couple things that need to be addressed and have some answers. If we're going to develop our downtown, we can't have all the homelessness shelters downtown. It doesn't make sense to have that into an area that we're trying to develop and build up. Hope that answered it. Yes, sir.
Along what you just talked about as far as the growth, what's it take to lower the speed limit on some roads? And mainly what I'm talking about is living in San Marco on Hendricks, prior to hitting, it's 40 miles an hour through there. 60 is the average speed. And it's just, especially now that school's back in session, I'm a little past it. My wife is T-boned by a U-Haul ran a red light right there. But seeing the children that are walking to the schools and things, I mean, there are cars at 6:30 in the morning, easily 60 miles an hour. And
I think it's a state road. I'm not exactly sure. It turns into a city road at some point because it's San Jose and Hendricks. But what's it take to change something like that, or to get, I don't want to say people to care about it, but for it to become an issue to address?
So there's a couple things you could do. One is getting the police involved. If they're doing 60 on a 40-mile-an-hour, that's already something that can be brought down to 40 miles an hour. And we've had this. I've had these conversations with our community. We've had cut-through roads where people came through there, and we ended up getting the police involved with our meetings, and they ended up going out there. The people who were complaining the most about the excessive speed ended up where it was their kids doing most of the speeding. So then we had them yelling at us because now it's a speed trap that was set up. But I know, but you can't make this stuff up. But the other thing that can be done is getting with traffic engineers to change the signs, to change the speed limit signs. That can be done with your council member. So anytime we do something that has to do with traffic on lowering the speed limit or changing it, we have to get the community buy-in. Usually there's some signatures that the community has to go and get the signatures. We get the traffic engineer to come out there, and then we also have the fire department come out and check out, because sometimes there's speed bumps that are put in, sometimes there's signs. You get with the traffic engineer, and there's a host of things that you can do. On the state roads, I've never done a state road, but I have done neighborhood ones. And sometimes you end up putting a speed bump or speed table. There's different types of things that you can put in there that does slow it down, but it's kind of trading off one kind of pain in the neck for another pain in the neck. Now you live in front of that house and you've got a speed table or speed hump, you're going to hear every ladder that's loose in the truck going by. So there's a lot of answers to that. But the first thing would be to work with your council member for your district to set up a meeting with your community to find out what it is that you want to do. Is it putting in more stop signs? Is it reducing the speed limit? Getting with the sheriff's office to enforce some of that stuff. So there is a lot of answers to that. It kind of depends on what the community wants to do with it. But I understand the safety part. That is something you want to do. But I shared that with you because that's something that happened to me a couple times. And I brought it up, and people are, no, I won't have it. And honest to God, 3 weeks later, my phone's blowing up to where my kid got a ticket for no reason, or they did, the parent did. So I hope that answers your question on that. Okay. Yes, sir. You had your hand up earlier.
I wanted to ask you a question about leadership, because you touched on it sort of indirectly. There's competing tensions that I think we all understand, either directly or intuitively, that every politician has to deal with. There's the one, do I just represent the people who elected me, or do I represent a greater swath? And the answer is typically you do both. And you mentioned that early on.
Right.
And then there's the other about real leadership. I remember the day when it was completely unacceptable that a politician would say that he or she is following the lead of the polls. But today they'll do it. They'll pretty much tell you that. And I think about that right now in our national situation, because I've heard politicians of both parties say, hey, we need to get out of Afghanistan. We need to be completely out of Afghanistan. Whether or not it's a good idea or a bad idea, and I'm not advocating for either one. The polls want us out of these continuous wars. And so politicians are actually telling us, hey, that's what the polls say. So I was thinking about your dilemma with Lot J, because it sounded like you thought it was a good idea. And I assure you, this is not a statement about whether I think it was a good idea or not, because I don't know. It sounded like you thought it was a good idea. It's definitely something for the entire city, and you have to vote on things just like senators do, or something larger than your representative body. How did you deal with that? You felt like your constituents were against it, but it sounds like you thought it was a good idea.
So I thought it was a neat idea. And I looked at it the same way I do, for example, Craig Airport extension of the runway. So for 2 years, I flew the police helicopter unit, so I'm very familiar with Craig Airport. And I understand the safety. I understand all the things that would come along with having a longer extended runway. But the position I'm in as a representative of a district, I follow what they're doing. There's different elected officials that do different things. Mine is for the districts. So if I could give you 100 reasons why Craig Airport runway should have been extended, sort of like with Lot J, I kind of applied, but the community wasn't sold on it. And being it was their tax-paying dollars that were being used, I felt like if I can't go out and explain why this is going to happen and this is the benefits from it, I'm not the salesperson. I was just the one who's the representative. When it comes to something that's safe, for safety or something, to me, that's such an easier thing to deal with than taking your dollars or his dollars or her dollars and spending them on something and not being able to justify it by explaining the return on investment. Does that make sense to you? Or what? So that's kind of how I balance out what I'm thinking. The Craig Airport runway extension, like I said, I could think of a whole bunch of reasons why it should be extended. But as them electing me as their representative saying, we don't want this done, that's kind of where I'm at. So if they want to extend it, they need to be the salesperson of it to where they get the community buy-in. That was the same with Lot J or the district or some of the other things that come forward. I hope I'm
You did.
explaining
Thanks.
it.
I appreciate it.
I'm getting that look.
And I'm so sorry to have to give it. Thank you so much. We would like to offer you this certificate as a remembrance of the fact that we've given a donation in your name to the Rotary Foundation to end polio.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. And thank you for the $2 you already.
Am I safe in assuming that you would be available for any further questions after the meeting?
Certainly.
That's good. Thank you so much. A couple of reminders. Next week, no lunch meeting. We will be off for the Labor Day holiday. We will meet again on September 14th when Chief T.K. Waters from the Jacksonville Sheriff's Office will be our guest speaker. I would ask you to indulge me for just a second. As I say that having given the prayer today, anyone else who prayed probably would have recalled the 20th anniversary of the 9/11 attacks and those in our midst who gave their lives in Afghanistan and those who are struggling with Hurricane Ida. As people who serve your community, please take a moment this week to remember. And please rise and join me in the Rotary motto.
Serve above self, one profits most who serves best.